As I'm talking to, a lot of people emailed me questions. They posted in the group a lot of questions. So I'm going to go through and kind of group together the questions that I got. But as I go through this, if you all have questions live, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask me. Pop any questions in the chat if you prefer that. And I'm going to keep an eye on it as I go through this. Um, so before we dive into all that, I see some people are starting to put in the chat. So California, started a business thinking about it. Yes, I get a lot of people from California. And just so everyone knows where I'm coming from, I started my nonprofit in California well, I really started in 2013, but it got approved in 2014 by the IRS. And then in 2019, I started a branch in Pennsylvania. So we operate in both states now. So I'm very familiar with California. I see Michigan. Looks like you just got the name approved. Woohoo, that's awesome. So very early stage, you have a for-profit and you're starting a nonprofit. That's great. Um, yeah, so if you have any questions, Heather, as we go through this about starting the nonprofit and the for-profit, let me know. Um, and I see Carrie Ann came on. Hey, Carrie Ann, good to see you. Um, so let's kind of get started. So before we jump into your questions, and as I said, pop them in the chat or unmute if you have them as I go along. But before we jump into questions, I wanted to make sure that we're actually solving the right problem that everyone is having. Because most therapists aren't stuck because they don't care about this, right? They're stuck because they're trying to figure out how to start a nonprofit, and they get stuck because they don't understand the structure of starting a nonprofit. We're taught and we learn how to structure for profits sometimes, right? We're not taught that in grad school, but we are inundated with people who offer help to start for profits, but no one shows us how to do it in the nonprofit space. So I think when I talk to people, what people end up asking is not can I do this, but they're really asking, is this legal? What if I mess something up? How do I do this without risking my license or my income, right? So those are the things that jump into uncertainty. And because of that, and these are all really good questions, it's just that we're asking them in the wrong order. So most therapists have been taught that there's two options. You can stay in community mental health, which we all know is underpaid, you burn out, right? High caseloads. Or you can build a private practice for profit, but which is great and awesome if you're able to do that. But then you're like, oh, I still feel like I'm leaving people out. There's people that I can't afford to bring into my private practice because they can't afford it and I can't sacrifice my income. So neither of these two options actually solves the problems that a lot of us therapists care about, and that's providing accessible services. I'm just going to let some more people in here.
I
So,
just want to say, can I just say really quick,
sure,
that
yeah.
I can't, I like what you just said. It's like, wow, she just literally is in my brain. And because that's exactly, because I've had the office, the private practice I
Yeah.
started last May, and then I'm like trying to do this. And so this is amazing. That's all I want to say. Thank you for
Oh no, I'm so glad
having
it's
this.
resonating. This is like the main thing that comes up when I talk to therapists about this. And the thing is that there's so much uncertainty when we bring this option into play because when you start talking about it with other people who don't know about it, they're misinformed by myths that aren't actually true, and then that scares a lot of people away from starting a nonprofit. So a big part of what I like to do is just educate people that like those myths aren't true. This is legal. You're not going to put your license at risk. And yes, it's a different structure than a for-profit, but that's how community mental health starts. And community mental health is started by people. So we can start them as well. It's just on a different level than community mental health. And I'll talk about like the difference of what I'm talking about versus community mental health. Um, so the third path that we're talking about today is where you can serve underserved communities. You can build something that is compliant and scalable and actually pay yourself well so that you don't end up burning out or honestly guessing your way through starting a nonprofit. So I'm going to walk you through today the same way that I help build nonprofits for therapists, step by step in the correct order so that it actually works. And Carrie, who's actually on the call, has done this with me. So we have people that have been through this and understand why I do it this way. Because Carrie probably can attest, it is a very step-by-step process when we do it together. Um, Let me just let some people in here. My whole Zoom like changed the interface of it, and I am still getting used to it. Okay. So as we go, if you realize you don't want to figure it out all alone, I'll show you what it looks like to have this built correctly for you. That's an option. You guys just let me know if you're interested in that. And before I answer your questions, I'm going to give you a breakdown of how we need to frame this because I think sometimes just answering questions can leave you feeling more confused. So I'm going to put this in a frame that actually helps you understand the right sequence, and it's not just throwing information at you. So when we talk about building a nonprofit therapy practice or a nonprofit group practice, it comes down to four main parts that we need to focus on. And most of the time, the questions that I get that people ask, they fall into these four categories. So the first category is formation. That means like the legal setup, getting it legally established correctly the first time. The second part is governance, making sure that you're protected as a founder, but that you don't have proprietary interest in the nonprofit, and that it is set up within compliance of the IRS, right? So governance is really about your board of directors. The third part is revenue. So, how this actually becomes financially sustainable is really important when we talk about your revenue from the beginning. And then the fourth part is actually implementing it all, right? How do you actually launch it? How does the nonprofit actually run? What does operation look like? And to be completely honest, the operations of it, especially if you're doing a therapy nonprofit, there's very minimal differences than running a for-profit. Once you get to the operational level, it's very, very similar. So if you are already doing that, then that piece of implementation is not going to be much of an adjustment. It's really the first three phases that are new, right? And anything that's new is a little bit scary for us. So every question that someone asked fell into one of these categories. So I'm going to answer them in order of the ones that I got. And, if any of those bring up additional questions, like I said, pop them in the chat or just unmute yourselves and ask. I'm totally fine if you interrupt me. I like when we have back and forth flow. So I think that really helps other people too. All right. So um, one of the first questions that I got asked when I said I was doing this was like, what is the motivation? Why would someone want to do a 501(c)(3), especially now that public student loan forgiveness is kind of up in the air and changing, right? And this was a really good question because I get it. Like a big motivating factor can be public student loan forgiveness, and people wonder, well, is this worth it anymore, right? But truthfully, a nonprofit, it's not about motivation. It's really about access. Of course, are there motivating factors behind it, like public student loan forgiveness? Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of us have student loans that are the size of a mortgage. Like, of course, that's motivating. But it's really about access, and you have to want to give access and then get the benefits of having a nonprofit. So, what is the access exactly? The access is being able to get grants, being able to get contracts, being able to do fundraising, which you literally would not be able to touch otherwise unless you're a nonprofit. And if you're in California specifically, the other access point is not just about access to clients, but it's giving access to interns and practicum students. Because in California, as all of you probably know, you can't be a practicum site unless you're a nonprofit. So it not only gives access to clients, but it does give access to future mental health professionals. And not that giving access, or not that, having a practicum or an internship in community mental health is a bad thing. I think that's an important process that we probably all have been through, but it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be these massive caseloads or not having a good supervisor or feeling like the chaotic and sometimes toxicity of community mental health. We can give them a different experience in the way we want to with developing our own culture in our nonprofit. And I think that can really shape and change the way the mental health field operates. So for me, it's not about motivation, it's about access. But I also want to say, although public student loan forgiveness is going through a lot of changes, public student loan forgiveness as of now still exists. What is changing is the qualifying organizations that count as a nonprofit. And I have not been able to find like an exact definition for that. But what I have seen is that they're really looking for nonprofits that are doing illegal services. Like they're just no longer going to approve you for public student loan forgiveness because you have an EIN that's within the IRS. They're actually going to be a little bit more scrutinizing the nonprofits. And if you're setting it up the right way, then none of these would fall into that category. And the people that I see that have therapy-led nonprofits, they're still getting their public student loans forgiven once they hit the 10-year mark. So I haven't seen any changes that impact us directly. And I saw a question come through, so I'm going to read it. What is the difference between a nonprofit and a 501c3 nonprofit? So when you set up the application, it asks if you wanted community versus board of directors making decisions. And I think I already messed that up and
I
did
can
not.
explain more if it doesn't make sense. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
yes.
just don't want to.
Yeah, this is about
So
formation, right? So this is a great question. This goes into that very first phase. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if that made sense, but I just didn't want to forget to ask because, like, so when I was going through the process and I was like, oh, wait, shoot, I didn't set up as a 501c3. And I didn't really know there. I thought all nonprofits automatically were a 501c3. I learned this. You're like,
Yeah,
nope. And then, yeah, they had two questions like, who do you want to make decisions for the organization? And I only said, I think it said the question was definitely board of directors, or I thought it said like community
it
or
probably
something.
said members. Will
Members.
you
Oh,
have
yeah.
voting members? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's,
Which
I think,
it doesn't mean you necessarily messed it up. I think so. Remind me, what state did you say you're in again?
Michigan.
You're in Michigan. And did you hear back from the state?
Um, I mean, I got approved,
Oh, you got
but
approved.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so to answer the first part of your question of you thought, because you applied at the state level that automatically meant you're a 501c3. No, the formation is a two-step process. The first step is at the state level, which you did. The
Now I need
second,
EIN.
yep.
Right.
Well, that is actually a third part of
Sorry,
the
I'll let you talk.
no, you're all good. No, you're reminding me that is another part. So typically the process goes like this. You file at the state level. Then you get an EIN, and then you fill out the 501c3 application at the IRS level. So
Okay. Okay.
formation starts at the state first, it ends at the federal level.
Okay.
Yep. And all you're saying the difference between members and a board of directors, and you can go back and you can contact your Secretary of State if you want to change it. But when you have voting members, it means that basically instead of a board of directors, you might have multiple people that are part of the organization. A lot of times members pay fees, like a membership fee to
Oh,
be part of it, and then they have voting rights. So it's not just a board of directors that votes on decisions. It could be anyone that is a voting member. And so sometimes in organizations, there's like different tiers of memberships. And so what's great about a membership is that it's kind of like building in funding for the nonprofit because if you have a membership that costs a fee and they have to pay to be able to have voting rights, that money goes back into the nonprofit. Um, Someone I helped set up her nonprofit in California actually in 2024, she decided to have voting members instead of the board of directors. I mean, you still have a board, but you also have voting members that pay, and she had a membership structure. Most therapy practices don't do that because that's more for other types of nonprofits. For example, in 25, I helped start a nonprofit that some of you might be familiar with it, but it's called the Intuitive Clinicians Council. It's basically a nonprofit business league where it's kind of like Psychology Today, where you know how you pay for a membership of
Mhm.
Psychology Today. This is where you pay for a membership for anyone who wants to do like non-traditional modalities in therapy. And clients are looking for a therapist that utilizes those things, right? So that's like more of a membership style type of nonprofit. So that's just a difference. But I would say for you, just
Okay.
go back to Michigan and ask them if you can change that to board of directors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the next step would be apply at the federal level for 501(c)(3).
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so any other questions about formation? I think I'm seeing other comments come in. Let me see.
Sorry, I have like two, three-part question that I just put in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So I
Go
can
ahead.
say it just so you don't have to like read it all.
I'm gonna
So
read while you say
okay,
it.
good. Okay, so like the state of California, right?
Mhm.
The government page to file the articles of incorporations. It just seems like, right now I'm like playing and just, like getting familiar with like certain websites and, the documentation and all that. But it seems so straightforward. Like I
It
thought it
is.
would be more
Yeah.
extensive.
Yeah.
Like even the part where they're like, okay, like what are, it's like a one sentence and
Yes.
like a very, short sentence. And I'm like, okay. Um,
Yes.
so
People
I
are
guess
shocked by that. Yes, that is real.
I'm like, I guess I was wondering like how extensive, like when we actually file with the IRS, like how extensive does the writing for like the bylaws, articles of incorporation, the conflict of interest policy have to be? And I have in my research, I've seen like there are fillable, documents for these particular forms, but do you suggest like writing each policy by hand? And also when you submit to the IRS, I know they ask for specific documents, but do you also have to submit a nonprofit business plan with it?
These are really great questions. So there's two different answers. Yes, number one, most states to actually file for the nonprofit is a pretty easy, straightforward process. California is one of the easiest states to do that in. Some of the other states are a bit more complicated depending on the state. When it comes to the IRS application, there's two IRS applications. The first one is the
Yeah.
EZ form. On the EZ
Yeah.
form, you don't have to upload any documents. It is a pretty
Okay.
short, straightforward form. You need to have your
Yeah.
board members and you need to have your mission
Okay.
statement. Your mission statement in that document cannot be more than 250 characters. That is like literally three sentences. And
Yeah,
then,
that's so interesting.
mhm. And then you don't
No, go ahead.
upload any of your bylaws. They don't request any of that for the easy form. The 1023 full form is much more extensive. You use that form if you're like fully transitioning a for-profit to a nonprofit all at once completely. And if you already know that you're going to be making more than at least 50,000 in the first year, you need to do that more extensive form. On that form, you have to have 3 years of projected financials. There's a lot more questions on that form, and you have to upload your articles of incorporation by the state, and you have to upload your bylaws into that document. So, and there's a big price difference between those two. The shorter form is 275. The larger form, I think, is now 650. So it depends
Okay.
on which one you're doing.
Right. No, that's awesome. I think so. I did the eligibility questions for the easy, and it said that I would be able to do the easy one,
Then do
which
the
is
easy.
crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, because I looked at both and I'm like, whoa, like 3 pages compared to like 30.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. The
okay.
longer form is absolutely doable, but it is helpful to have someone who's done it multiple times because that
Right.
form you can easily mess up. And I think more
Yeah.
than 50% of applications typically get sent back because the form
Oh,
was
wow.
filled out wrong.
Okay. And do you have like a time? I've seen like it could take like months, for IRS to get back. Do you like, kind of have like
It
time frame, like, you know?
Yeah, it changes. Carrie, I'm just going to ask you real quick. How long did you hear back from the IRS yet?
I did. I heard back. I think it was just last week I got my letter. I'm official.
Yeah, so Carrie was one of the last ones that I did. She was in my done for you package. Um,
Which is
what we do,
totally worth it, by the way.
what'd you say?
Totally worth it.
We did all of your paperwork in one day. And yeah, I think it was maybe 3 weeks, and that was the easy form as well. Um, when you fill out the longer form, it does tend to take longer. But I tell everybody this, like, it depends on what's happening in the government. Like, if there's a full shutdown, a partial shutdown, the change in administration, the layoffs at the IRS, like, it's totally unpredictable with our current administration. So, kind of whatever's happening at the government level does impact the wait times. But I would say, since like the summer of 25, it's been way more consistent where I'm seeing anywhere from 2 weeks to about 4 weeks for approval. Whereas in the beginning of 25, it was like 6 months because of like all the layoffs at the IRS. So if you fill it out right, it's not a long wait time.
Okay, that's awesome to know. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to make sure, did I get all of your questions in there? Oh, writing hand each of the policies. So your policies, um, the only policies, if you're doing the long form, that you need to make sure are absolutely done are your bylaws and your articles of incorporation. The other policies, you can work on them while you're waiting for the IRS approval. You have to have a conflict
Oh,
of
okay.
interest policy. You have to have non-discrimination, and you have to have like a whistleblower policy. There might be another one. Um, and all of those, like when I do them, I have like a general template, but then I tailor them to each nonprofit because those policies do depend on the type of services you're doing in the nonprofit.
Okay.
Um,
And you said those ones you were able to work on while you're waiting for the IRS,
yeah,
but just
yeah.
have the
Yep.
bylaws and photo corporation.
Yep,
Okay. And
exactly.
EIN.
Yeah, yeah, the
Okay.
EIN you need to get before the IRS application because it asks you for the EIN on both the easy form and the long form. So you need that EIN. But do not like some people, and when you Google EIN, it's just a free form that you can fill out that Carrie and I got it in like 30 seconds.
Oh,
So
wow.
don't go to a company and say, you know, uh,
Right.
charge $200 for this EIN. Because that has happened to some people that I talk to. Yeah, you get it, the EIN instantaneously.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
hmm Okay, so I have another question. Shannon, you said my nonprofit is to help people in the community, help people need homeless, first aid responders. You're already registered as a 501(c)(3), so you have all the paperwork done. So how do you get volunteers to join you? Um, do you tell me a little bit more about your services? Like, um, you help people in need and like the homeless and first responders. What does that mean specifically?
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Take your time.
Sorry, I was feeding kids.
I totally get that. Yeah.
So what we do is like
Oh, go
if our
ahead.
firemen and stuff are going out and doing like natural disasters like wildfires, helping with the when there's a tornado and stuff,
Oh, cool.
we give them like eye drops, drinks,
Oh, that's
snacks.
amazing.
And then like the homeless, we go out and give them like little devotionals
hmm
and put like socks, wipes,
hmm
like different things that they could use, and then like some food that's non-perishable that they can use
That's
into a
awesome.
bag, hand them out, and like we have put like little bitty like New Testament Bibles in the bags, like whatever they do with it is up to them.
Sure, sure. So,
And
Um,
then like kids, like
mhm.
families that have like kids that need like food or like baby clothes, diapers,
Yeah. Yeah.
formula, we can will be giving those out to people that needs help.
Yeah. Yeah. So yours would be pretty volunteer heavy. That makes sense for what you're talking about with your mission. So if you are able to, I would say you should come to our free workshop on Tuesday because your nonprofit is probably going to more heavily than other nonprofits, like therapy nonprofits, are going to, your nonprofit is going to rely more on fundraising and donations. But that's also how you're going to get the word out there about volunteers as well. So I saw that you just got your website done. For you, it's going to be about the messaging and getting that word out there to your community for people that are interested in it. And so when we talk about like getting the word out there and networking in your local community, you really want to make sure your messaging and your copy is super clear on exactly what you're doing and the impact that you want to have because I'm sure all of us, right? We're all listening to what you're saying. We're like, that's an amazing mission. So you've already got like the pitch down. Now you just need to put it down on copy and make people want to be able to volunteer because that makes people feel good, right? That's the kind of thing that fulfills people. You just need to make sure you're getting it out there on social media, on your website, create a free fundraiser on GiveButter or Zephy. Those are free platforms. Um, and then honestly, probably like going out to local corporate places, businesses, and sharing about what you do to like recruit volunteers. But before you do that, for you, this goes into like when we talk about the four phases, the last phase of implementation really also includes your structure. You need to have your foundational structure ready. So if you haven't yet, for you, it's going to be outlining exactly what a volunteer does, having a volunteer job description, and your standard operating procedure for onboarding volunteers, what their roles will be, how you will execute that. That is going to be necessary first before you go out and recruit volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we already got our determination letter back from
Great.
IRS, and we already have it registered through the state.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, your next step then is, in the three phases, like you're on to the really the third and fourth phase.
Like I already have like a volunteer application where they can fill
Great.
it out online. It's hooked to our website.
Great. Yeah, you'll just want to
And
make it really clear what the volunteer roles are, the number of hours that you're looking for, because people
okay.
want to know exactly what to do. It's as if you're bringing on an employee and training them, having that really clear process written out. And that might change over time, but people stay longer when they're trained well, including volunteers. So I would say before you do actual fundraising, do that first. Get really clear on that and then start to build your fundraising. But you should still come on Tuesday to the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be hosted on Zoom just like this, except instead of just me, I'm going to have Carrie Lim. She's my fundraiser and grant writing expert. So she has done this like her whole career, specifically in mental health nonprofits. So bring your questions for her about fundraising and grants. Um,
Okay.
yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to see what other questions did I get. I wrote it down. And if anyone on here has questions, I just want to look at the questions that were emailed to me too. Do, 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 do. Okay, this is a big one. How do I find funding, right? Everyone tends to jump to funding first, but funding actually does come after the structure. Grants don't just like they don't just happen in nonprofits. They really go to organizations that are compliant and positioned correctly. And in order to position your nonprofit correctly, you have to build something fundable first. So that's the key before you even want to start thinking about grants. Um, and people get frustrated because they try to skip those steps of the structure and the formation first. They think that they need to have funding first, but that's not actually the case. You want to have the formation and your structure built first, and then work on something that is fundable. Um, so when you start thinking about grants, that's not honestly something you want to think about until you've been at least established and operating for 3 to 5 years. And I know that seems like a long time. You're like, well, then how are we going to get funded? Grants are not your foundational funding to begin with. Grants are supplemental funding. And the reason why is because grants are unpredictable. Grants are time limited. Even if you like miraculously have a federal grant, which you really don't want, they're not long-term sustainable. You want to start with your foundational funding, which is simply going to be your fee-for-service revenue, whether that's sliding scale, Medi-Cal, Medicaid, Medicare, commercial insurance, a local contract that you might have with a school or county behavioral health. That's your foundational funding. I see a hand raised with a question. Go ahead and jump in.
Yes. Okay, my question was, okay, now I'm like blinking, sorry.
Oh,
Um,
good.
I have uh, it was because it's like the first part of the oh, there you go. Okay, the nonprofit business plan. So
Yes,
in my research, I've seen that. Okay, sorry, hold on. My kids. Um, I've
totally fine.
seen that, they're like it's 2026, like the um business plans that were like 30 pages long is like no longer needed, like just get straight to the point. Like it doesn't have to be that long. What are your thoughts on that? Like, on like a one page, business plan where it's like you are, giving the metrics, you're giving, your mission, your what you're solving, the issue, compared to like an extensive business plan. And then like when would you use it? Like who, is it for the board? Like is it just for yourself to
Yeah,
or like when you're trying
yeah,
to get these local like contracts, like what's.
yeah. No, that's a really good question. To be honest, the answer is going to depend. Um, if you've ever worked with me, you'll know that my business plans are pages and pages long. Not because they are like filled with a bunch of fluff, but because the business plans that I do are meant for you internally. They are meant for the board internally. They're not meant to use on like grant applications. They're meant to walk you through step by step of the actual process of implementation. So, I'll just use Carrie for an example because I'm like looking at her. Her business plan, the very first step in there, one of the first steps was to apply for Medi-Cal. And so I'm walking you through of like, okay, well, to apply to Medi-Cal in California, you have to find out what county you're in. You have to find out who the MCO holder is. You have to apply to PAVE. You have to update your CAQH profile. So I like for me, the business plans are supposed to be meant to actually use internally to get you through setting up your nonprofit structure. When you talk about business plans for people that are requesting them, like a grant maker or someone who might want to see it that's like a corporate sponsorship, yeah, you're doing like the one-page strategic plan. I just did a grant application yesterday for my nonprofit. And as part of the grant application, they asked for a strategic plan in the next 3 years. And so we're getting straight to the point of like, this is what we're hoping to do in our county. This is how many people we're hoping to serve. This is the impact that we're hoping to make based on our numbers from the last year. And usually they want some financial information, and that's it. You're not filling it with like the step-by-step stuff that you need internally. So I feel like it just depends on like what you're using the business plan for.
Okay,
Hopefully,
that makes sense. Thank you.
yeah, sure. So really when you talk about like a one pager type of thing for a grant, it's really more of a strategic plan versus like your business plan, which is like your step by step of this is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to build this structure. Um, Anyone else have questions about funding and that phase or revenue stuff, grants?
I have a question since we're on it about the funding.
Yeah.
Mine is more so like the fee for services though.
Hmm.
So credentialing with insurances, especially as a nonprofit or offering sliding scale, um, because the way that my nonprofit would be structured would be that like we would have different programs. So one of them would be right, giving therapy. The mental health portion is, giving therapy, but the other ones would be like the peer services, support groups,
Yep.
consultation, and then we would do like a eventually, right? This would be built out like a residential spiritual like ministry. But for the fee for services, and especially with like us as therapists, do you because right, like I see a lot of therapists who go into private practice and they're like, I just want all like private pay, like I don't even want to deal with insurances. Like, they're a headache. I guess I have a two-part question to this is that like what have you seen in getting credentialed, with insurances, like paneled with them, like how easy or difficult it is? And then compared to, right, your private pay, like clients who you have who actually can like pay your private pay fee. And then the second part of that question would be, oh no, I guess that is the two-part question.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a good question. So when it comes to like actually processing money and like admin work, obviously collecting cash pay, calling it a day is like the easiest thing. But when you're a nonprofit, like you can't just offer premium pay, right? You have to be able to offer sliding scale. And if you offer only cash sliding scale in your nonprofit, that alone is not going to be sustainable for your funding and pay you well, right? I think that's the barrier that we hit in private practice. But the access point for nonprofit is then that you can supplement sliding scale cash pay with fundraising or with local grants. And so, admin wise, if you're fundraising and just doing sliding scale cash pay, it's relatively simple. Like you're just then focusing on fundraising to offset sliding scale cash pay. Of course, when we add in insurance or Medi-Cal or Medicaid in there, yeah, there's going to be more admin work associated with it. And some clinicians don't want to do that, and I totally understand that. For me, it's the bread and butter of my nonprofit. Like it is such consistent, stable funding that has helped us grow, that it's worth to me the extra admin work. Commercial insurance is separate than that. Commercial insurance is way harder than Medi-Cal or Medicaid. So if you're in California, I always recommend if you can do Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal pays really well compared to commercial insurance. Like you're
Is that a
talking,
state insurance? Because
Medi-Cal is the Medicaid of California.
Yeah.
oh, Michigan, it's totally different. It's a nightmare here, Michigan versus commercial. That's
It
why I was wondering.
Yeah,
Okay.
it totally is state specific. It is absolutely state specific, but that's why I say if you're in California, it is worth it because number one, California has the same rate across the state, and that's public information that you can find on the DCFS website. And the billing is very straightforward for Medi-Cal, and they pay us every single week. So it is absolutely our foundational funding, and I think our highest payer as of now. I have like our financials broken down into payers. Um, and then in Pennsylvania, it's Medicaid, and I guess I'm in pretty lucky states because Medicaid in our county in Pennsylvania definitely depends on the county that you're in because it depends on who the managed care company is. But our managed care company for my county, Chester County, is like chef's kiss. I mean, amazing reimbursement rates. We get over $200 for a diagnostic eval. Like that's unheard of for commercial insurance, even. That's like private pay rates, right? Um, and so with it depends on what county you're in and who the in California and who the managed care company is of what other services you can provide while taking Medi-Cal. So for example, here in Pennsylvania, our Medicaid is through something called CCBH. CCBH also provides reimbursement and credentialing for non-clinical services if you go about that. So such as peer services. There's substance use peer services and there's what's it called? Mental health peer services. So if you build a peer program in my county in Pennsylvania, you can contract with Medicaid and build a team and provide peer services. Same thing with case management, and same thing with a bunch of other services, residential services. So depending on what services are available under the Medicaid or Medi-Cal depends on the reimbursement. A lot of them are still fee for service, like case management, like peer services, but some of them are also program funded. So when we talk about foundational funding, we have fee for service, meaning I provide a service, you pay me for the amount of time that I did that service. Program funded is where they say, you're going to provide this program and we're going to provide you the cost of that program and you propose to us what that cost is. Um, so in Pennsylvania, one of the things that is program funded for us is administrative case management for substance use services, meaning they want every single substance use program to have an administrative case manager and they fully fund that position for you. So you're not paying, your nonprofit is like not paying for that position. Your local county or local MCO is paying for that. So that is another like funding source to tap into, but you have to kind of do some research to figure out what is program funded in your local communities. It's either going to be through Medi-Cal or Medicaid, or it's going to be through directly with your county behavioral health department is where typically you find those contracts. And a lot of them are through RFPs, requests for proposals. So those are more likely to get than grants, by the way. Those are easier to get. You just have to have a pretty clear program. Let's see, I saw do you to sit in CA to bill Medi-Cal if you're a license. What's your question about licensing in California?
So if you're licensed therapist in California, like, do you have to live in California to provide your medical clients
No.
service therapy?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
No,
okay.
you do need to have a physical address on file. And it depends on the county that you're in if you need to have a physical office, like in-person services, but not all
Oh,
Medi-Cal plans require that in California. I think you're in LA County, aren't you?
yeah, correct.
Yeah, LA County does not require you to necessarily provide in-person services. So as
Okay.
long as you have an address that you can put on file, your MCO is LA Care through Carelon Behavioral Health.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so as an example, I'm licensed in California. I now live in Pennsylvania and I see Medi-Cal clients in California all the time. And I bill that appropriately. I bill it as telehealth and we get reimbursed. That's something that changed during COVID.
Okay, that's awesome to know. Because
Yeah.
my motto would be fully remote. Sorry, my kids are active this morning.
That's okay. Yeah, I will say though, what I am seeing in California, at least for my Medi-Cal plan, which is Ventura County, we are seeing an increase in requests for in-person services.
Yeah.
Um, so at some point they might require that for credentialing, but I haven't seen that happen yet. I know for San Diego County, if anybody's in San Diego, you do have to have an in-person physical office, and the MCO for San Diego and Medi-Cal is Optum. It's either Optum or Anthem, I forget which one. And they will go do an actual walkthrough before they will credential you in your
Oh,
office.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a question. It just
Yeah.
reminded me when Shannon shared her website, and it looks very awesome. By the way, I'm looking at her website. But so should I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but separate I guess I'll put my face on the screen. I was eating and I'm always doing random stuff, but I am listening.
I
Um,
get it. It's Friday.
and I also applied for my EIN while we were talking. It was that quick, like you said.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Did you get it?
multitasking. Yeah, totally.
Nice.
Um, so
Oh, wow. This
question
website
is,
is awesome. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I know it is. Keeping it separate, like, so I already have my website, but the nonprofit, should I keep that once I do it? I'm not doing it right this second, but so I have my private practice website. Should I keep the nonprofit website separate?
Yes, everything should be
I mean, I
separate.
figured. Okay.
Yeah, if you plan to operate a for-profit and a nonprofit, everything has to be separated. It doesn't mean that you can't have MOUs or agreements but financials have to be separate, separate bank accounts, separate
Okay,
contracts. And
I
then, like,
figure.
for some people, you might have a for-profit and a nonprofit, and you're going to use the office space at your for-profit. That's fine. You just need an MOU in place. And if you're paying, it has to be at fair market value. That's the key to the IRS is fair market value for
Mm,
anything to not be a conflict of interest.
okay, perfect. Thank you. And I signed it when I did sign up for or apply, whatever. I did put under my name versus under the private practice. So I mean that makes sense because it's under me, not Oliver Lee. That's the name of my okay. All right,
Yep.
thanks.
Yeah, yeah. I know it gets a little confusing and like gray when you have another business and you're like, oh, wait a second. What does this go under? Makes total sense. I get that all a lot. Um, where were we? We were talking about revenue. There was one other thing I think I was going to mention that I get. Um, I think a lot of people are afraid of compliance and like making a mistake or messing things up. And what I always tell people, I just got off a call with a new client that I have in California, and he's like so worried about that. And I'm like, look, you already have a baseline understanding of what compliance is for a nonprofit. We're not lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. You can always consult with a lawyer if you need to. But at the end of the day, our therapist-led nonprofits are minuscule in the eyes of the IRS. They are looking at really large nonprofits that bring in multi-million dollars a year that are not all of them, but some of them that it's pretty obvious are doing shady things. So as long as you are trying to maintain compliance and you're maintaining the rules of the IRS of your annual reporting and following which reports you need to file annually, and at some point, you can hire an external company to do an audit. You're going to be okay. And if something comes up in the audit, then you just make a corrective action plan to change that. I don't know if any of you gone through like an audit in community mental health? Some of you have, some of you haven't. Um, it's kind of similar to that. So when I worked in community mental health, I was overseeing like 27 different programs, like peer programs, residential programs. We were licensed by the state. We were licensed by mental health state, substance use state. We were licensed by, all of the like insurances, right? Had to follow all of these compliance rules, Joint Commission. We were literally in an audit like every single month, is what it felt like, because there were so many programs. And an audit can be definitely nerve-wracking, but the idea is that they're going through and they're just identifying and pointing out to you what is missing, what could do better, and then you do a corrective action plan to put in place what is missing and to change that. And in community mental health, a lot of times that feels impossible because you have so many programs that you're overseeing. But what I always recommend here is like, you're not doing a jack of all trades, master at none, which is often what community mental health does, right? They want to go after every single program under the sun, which then creates more hierarchy between the staff and the leadership. And that's what creates like the toxic culture. Whereas if you master a couple of programs under your nonprofit or just one program, then you're going to know eventually the compliance inside and out. And you're going to know exactly what you need to do. And making mistakes along the way is just part of the process. No one running nonprofits is perfect. It's a lot when you look at the laws and they're really wordy and they're hard to understand until you can dissect them and you just fix a mistake and then move on. So I don't really live in fear of compliance. I've certainly made mistakes along the way, but then I've fixed them and corrected them, and we have been totally fine. We've never had our status revoked. What happens is when you get your status revoked is if you're not filing your annual forms. So if you already have your 501c3 status, make sure you're filing your annual forms. They are due 6 months after the close of your fiscal year. You have to file with the IRS, you have to file with the state. That's it. And if you don't know how to do it, hire someone to do it. It's a one-time fee that you pay someone. Um,
Do you do that?
I do that for my nonprofit. I'll most likely outsource it this year because the higher revenue that you bring in annually, the more complicated the forms get, and the more I just don't want to do that. So there's a company that you can use. I'll put it in the chat. They're called Belay. Belay offers like an a la carte type of services for nonprofits specifically. So you can hire someone at the end of the year to do your annual filings. You can hire someone to do an internal or an external audit for your nonprofit. You can hire a bookkeeper through there. I got my bookkeeper through Belay. She is fantastic. She does my books every month. She sends me a mid-month review and then a final review at the end of the month. And she's made it so easy. Like my books have been so easy for me to read as a non-financial person that I've been able to do our annual filings every year. But if you didn't want to do that, you could hire a CPA through Belay. Um, Otherwise, it's kind of hard to find people that specialize in nonprofits. People are like, ah, that's scary. So a lot of CPAs won't do it, but that's why I've used Belay a lot because they only do nonprofits. Um, Trying to see what other questions that came in. I think of the questions that people emailed me and messaged me, hopefully I covered most of them. But I think at this point, you're probably like in one of two places. Type one is like, I got this. I'm going to figure this out on my own and I'm kind of good to go. I've already, did a lot of the filings. And then I get the people who are type two where they're like, I don't have time to do this. I don't want to risk doing it wrong and I just want someone to come in and help me with and do it for me. So that's where I come in. If you're interested in that, you can just send me an email if you want to know more about it. Um, Otherwise, I'm going to keep doing these workshops like around monthly so that, if you need help and support, you can come on these calls and I can answer questions. But I have about 5 minutes left before I have to go. If anyone has any last minute questions you want me to answer.
My brain's just fried. Earlier, I met with a new bookkeeper because I met with the accountant and she wanted to charge me tons. So I wanted a second opinion. And so my brain, like, there's lots of stuff in there. So
How
I don't
much was
personally have.
she? Do you mind me asking how much?
So the first one, they charged me 1,500 to just come up, like, because I just started the business like less than a year ago. So 1,500 to come up with their plan to tell me basically what my system is that I have is junk. They didn't say like that, but and then so then another 2,000. It's three phases. Yeah. So the first phase was like a couple thousand, and then they were gonna. I didn't sign any of this yet, and then the monthly bookkeeping would be between 250 to 500, and then there was another fee. Oh yeah, and then the annual taxes they would do between 750 and 900.
That's pretty
The
standard.
tax part I wasn't.
Yeah.
That was the least part,
Yeah,
but
because
then another.
that's just one time a year.
Yes,
So
I wasn't worried about that, but yeah, all this other stuff like the
yeah.
setup again to almost $3,000 when I just met with you. But yeah, sorry, that's another.
So in my experience, no, even through Belay, I've never had them charge me a fee to just meet with them. When I hired my bookkeeper through Belay, I honestly can't remember if there was a one-time fee. I don't think there was. Through Belay, she's $400 a month. I am stuck in my contract with Belay because I didn't know her otherwise, but um, she will, if you're interested in her name, you can email me. She'll do bookkeeping for less than 400 a month just if you contract with her directly. And she's amazing. But if you're just starting out, you probably don't need a bookkeeper right away. I would say wait till the end of your fiscal year and see where your numbers are at. If you are above 50,000 annually by the end of your first year, at that point I would get a bookkeeper
I
and someone,
totally am.
yeah.
Because I started, yeah, it was like a higher hundred thousands, um, uh, but not what I brought in, clearly. But like, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it
No,
would have been
total revenue. I mean, yeah,
official, yeah,
because the more revenue you bring in, the more specific you have to get on the IRS form. So if you're interested in talking to Robin, just shoot me an email.
Robin.
I'll put
Okay.
my email in the chat if anyone has any questions. But Robin will get you a good deal for bookkeeping, and she is literally the best decision I've made financially. Um, And what she did for me was, because prior to her, I didn't have a bookkeeper. I was doing it all myself. And I realized at the end of like one of our fiscal years, we were like close to 200,000. I was like, oh my God, I have none of this categorized. She went back and categorized that whole fiscal year for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And any changes you need, like she has, for me, she has it broken down now. Every month I know the percentage of Medi-Cal payments, the percentage of Medicaid, the percentage of cash pay, percentage of fundraising or whatever our funding streams are. I can see our percentage of salary to revenue. Like she gives me all these stats that help me keep on track of maintaining a healthy financial nonprofit.
That's great. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions as we wrap up? I saw an S, is this being recorded? Yes. After it downloads, what I typically do is post it in the Facebook group and I email it out. So it'll just live in the Facebook group and you can click on the link in the email anytime to like rewatch this.